All right, good day everyone. So, welcome to this subject, the contemporary world subject. So, again, I am Miss Novi Di Baligot, your instructor. So, we are now in our lesson 15, the second to the last lesson for this semester. So, um, in lesson 14, as a recap, we have discussed about environmental problems and sustainable development. So, in that topic, we were able to identify or understand the origins and manifestations of environmental crisis or environmental problems and um, understand or examine the policies and the programs of the government around the world that addresses the environmental problems. So this time, we will be talking about food security. But before that, please don't forget to like and subscribe our YouTube channel, Kuya Burns TV. All right. For this lesson, you are expected to define what is global food security, and you will critique existing models of global food security. So, before understanding what is food security, let us define first what is a food stability. So, food stability, food access, and food availability. So, when we talk about food stability, it is the ability to obtain food over time. And food access means the affordability and allocation of food as well as the preferences of individuals and households. And when we talk about food availability, this relates to the supply of food through production, distribution, and exchange. All right. So now what is food security? So food security has two common definitions according to the United States Department of Agriculture and the United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization. So, according to Food and Agriculture Organization, food security exists when all people at all times have physical and economic access to sufficient, safe, and nutritious food to meet their dietary needs and food preferences for an active and a healthy life. So, while um, according to USDA, food security is the ready availability of nutritionally adequate and safe foods and assured ability to acquire acceptable foods in socially acceptable ways. And that is without resorting to emergency food supplies, scavenging, stealing, or other coping strategies. So, food security is then defined as the availability of food and one's access to it. So, a household is considered food secure when its occupants do not live in hunger or fear of starvation. So, commonly, the concept of food security is defined as including physical and economic access to food that meets people's dietary needs as well as their food preferences. Household food security exists when all members of the family at all times have access to enough food for an active and healthy life. So, however, um, one challenge to food security is um, the hunger. No? So, according to Global Hunger Index, which is a tool that measures and tracks hunger globally as well as by region and by country, and the global hunger index is calculated annually. So hunger worldwide is represented by this global hunger index with a global score of 18.2, which is accordingly just a moderate level compared to the global hunger index in 2000, which scores 28.2, which is very serious or serious. No? So this hunger varies enormously by region across the world. So in this report, no, as you can see here, so this part is the Africa south of the Sahara, the South Asia, the report on West Asia and North Africa, the East and Southeast Asia, the Latin America, and the Caribbean, and then the Europe and the Central Asia. So the black color represents the mortality rate. This part. Uh, the gray one represents the prevalence of wasting in children, and then stunting. The white one represents the stunting in children, and the green one represents the undernourished among the children. All right. So in South Africa of the Sahara and Africa south of the Sahara and South Asia, the hunger is classified as serious. So, owing partly to large shares of people who are undernourished and high rates of child stunting. So, moreover, Africa south of the Sahara has the world's highest child mortality rate. No? And while South Asia, it has the world's um, highest highest wasting or child wasting rate. So in contrast, levels in Europe and Central Asia, Latin America, and the Caribbean, East and South Asia, and West Asia and North Africa are characterized as low or moderate in hunger. So, in 2020, accordingly, pandemic and the resulting economic downturn, as well as a massive outbreak of desert locusts in the Horn of Africa and other crises, are exacerbating food and nutrition. No? um, Food and nutrition insecurity for millions of people as these crises come on top of the existing hunger caused by conflict, climate extremes, and economic shocks. So the Global Hunger Index scores presented in 2020 do not yet reflect the impact of the overlapping disasters. But they point to hotspots where food insecurity and undernutrition are already severe. So, as to countries, also that one is for region. So this time is for country. So in this report, no, we see the continent or the region of um, Africa. No? So according to 2020 Global Hunger Index, three countries have alarming levels of hunger. So what are those countries? So those are Chad, Timor-Leste, and Madagascar. So hunger is also considered to be alarming in eight countries like Burundi, Central African Republic, Comoros, Democratic Republic of Congo, Somalia, South Sudan, Syria, and Yemen. So the world is not on track to achieve the second sustainable development goal. So what was that goal? That is zero hunger. So zero hunger for 2030. So at the current pace, approximately there were 37 countries will fail even to reach low hunger as defined by Global Hunger Index, no, by 2030. So additional countries for which data were insufficient to calculate 2030 projections may also fall short for this goal, which is zero hunger. So, furthermore, these projections do not account for the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic, which may worsen hunger and undernutrition in the near term and affect the country's trajectories into the futures into the future. So, within their borders, countries show wide disparities in a range of different indicators of hunger and along several lines, such as wealth, no location, ethnicity, and sex. So, what are the things affecting this food security? No? So, we have first global water crisis, climate change, land degradation, greedy land deals. So, when we talk about global crisis, water table reserves are said to be falling in many countries, including northern China, the US, and in India. So, this is due to the widespread of overpumping or irrigation, and then the decline in the water supply because of the degradation of soil or desertification. So, this has transformed what was once considered a public good into a private commodity. So the poorest areas of the globe experience a disproportionate share of water related problems. So the problem is further intensified by the consumption of virtual water wherein people inadvertently use up water for elsewhere in the world through the consumption of water intensive products. So, the destruction of the water ecosystem may also lead to the creation of climate change or climate refugees, people who are forced to migrate due to lack of access to water or due to flooding. So the second one is climate change. So climate change, this rising of global temperatures are beginning to have a ripple effect on crop yields, forest resources, water supplies, and altering the balance of the nature. Land degradation, on the other hand, is intensive farming leads to the vicious cycle of exhaustion of soil fertility, no? And the decline of agricultural yields. So, greedy land deals. So, corporations, governments buying rights of to millions of acres of agricultural land in some of the developing countries to secure their own long-term food supplies. So those were some of the things affecting the food security, and the other one are population growth, increasing cost of food, and employment and poverty. So we all know that population growth, the food production, we all know that it depends on the croplands and the water supply, which are under strain as human population increase. So pressure on limited land resources driven in part of population growth can mean expansion of cropland. And this often involves destruction of vital forests um, or over exploitation of arable land. The household, no, being unable to afford sufficient or quality food because of increasing cost of these foods also correlates with the experiences of the unemployment and poverty. So unemployment, no, high unemployment rate among low income population make it difficult to meet the basic household for the needs. So, in addition, children with unemployed parents have higher rates of food insecurity compared to children with employed parents. So, those are the reasons affecting food security. So, now what might be the answer to these food security problems? So, are you familiar with the GM food, or what they call the genetically modified food? So, these GM food and food security might be the answer, or might be the answer to this crisis. So, at present, little is known on the consequences and future safety aspects of this GM food. So, the movement of genes from these GM plants into conventional crops in the wild, outcrossing, as well as mixing of crops derived from conventional seeds with those grown using GM crops, may have an indirect effect on food safety and food security. So, this risk is real, as well shown when traces of maize type was only approved for feed use appeared in maize product for human consumption in the United States of America, far from focusing on the needs of the poor in the developing countries. So this GM crop development is driven by the commercial interest of the US and European companies. So some of the GM crops or major GM genetically modified crops currently grown uh, are soya, oilseed rape, cotton, and maize, which are designed to support the food and textile industries of the developed world. And there is currently little GM research and development by private companies on staple food crops vital to the developing countries. So another thing is governments. No, there are different models of agenda pushed by different organizations to address the issue of global food security, and one of these is through sustainability. So remember the second goal of sustainable development of the United Nations. So it has set ending hunger, achieving food security and improved nutrition and promoting sustainable agriculture as the second of its 17 sustainable development goals for the year 2030. So, on the other hand, the World Economic Forum in 2010 also addressed this issue in food security uh, through the new vision of agriculture, or what they call NVA. So, this NVA, defined by World Economic Forum partners in 2009, holds that to meet the world's needs, sustainable agriculture must simultaneously deliver food security, environmental sustainability, and economic opportunity. So, achieving those goals requires a transformation of agriculture sector, leveraging market-based approaches through a coordinated effort of different agricultural sector and transformation at national level, which includes setting the right direction through effective leadership, strategy, and investment models, and scaling the transformation through finance, infrastructure, institution, and monitoring. So, the World Economic Forum, in partnership with NVA, wherein these public-private partnership were established and mobilized over $10 billion that reach smallholder farmers And the forum's initiative were to launch or establish cooperation and encourage exchange of knowledge among farmers, government, civil society, and private sector in both regional and in national level. So, indeed, um, food security, as we defined earlier, according to the United Nations Committee on World Food Security, means that all people at all times have physical, social, and economic access to sufficient, safe, and nutritious food that meets their food preferences and dietary needs for an active and healthy life. So, over the coming decades, a changing climate, growing global population, rising food prices, environmental stressors will have significant yet uncertain impacts on food security, and many countries are facing the double burden of hunger and undernutrition alongside with overweight and obesity, with one in the three people across the globe currently suffering from some form of malnutrition. So, with these adaptation strategies and policies responses to global change, including options for handling water allocation, land use patterns, food trade, post-harvest food processing, and food prices and safety are urgently needed. So, a major challenge now is understanding how can we redesign the food system, be healthy, sustainable, and more resilient, to the climate change. And how can we help meet both the sustainable development goals? So that would be all for this lesson, the global security. For the next topic, we will be discussing the last topic that we have, which is all about the global citizenship. And then in that topic, we will try to answer on what does it mean to be um, a global citizen of the world, right? So that would be all. So have a good day, everyone.